The world of rock and roll, a realm once thundered by blistering guitar riffs and electrifying stage performances, went quiet as the news spread like wildfire. Ozzy Osbourne, the legendary frontman of Black Sabbath and the emblematic figure of heavy metal, had died at 75. Known globally as the Prince of Darkness, his passing marked the end of an era. But as fans across continents mourned his loss, it wasn't just the fact of his death that devastated millions. It was what came after. A funeral veiled in secrecy, whispered confessions at his casket, and an emotional reckoning by his wife of over 40 years, Sharon Osbourne, that revealed a raw, vulnerable portrait of the man behind the myth. A private death, a public legacy. Ozzy's final days were not splashed across tabloid headlines or played out in front of cameras. Despite a life largely lived in the limelight, his final chapter was quiet, cloaked in intimacy and emotional weight. For years, Ozzy had battled an array of medical challenges, from Parkinson's disease to spinal surgeries, falls, and complications from pneumonia. Yet it was in his final weeks that something in him began to fade beyond the physical. According to family insiders, Ozzy became increasingly withdrawn, his once vibrant and unpredictable spirit seemingly succumbing to a peaceful resignation. He stopped attending his regular physical therapy sessions, refused medication, and made cryptic remarks to those closest to him, including his home nurse. "I just want to sleep and not wake up." The rocker who once howled on stage with an energy that defied age and ailment had fallen almost completely silent at the breakfast table. Sharon, ever the pillar through his tumultuous journey, from addiction to public scandals, near-death experiences, and tabloid storms, sensed a shift. This time felt different. It wasn't just about the body giving in. There was a calmness in Ozzy's eyes, she later recalled, a deep, almost resigned sadness. It was as though he was saying goodbye in a language only she understood. A quiet goodbye to family. In the final days, Ozzy orchestrated what can only be described as a farewell tour of the heart. Without ceremony or camera crews, he called each of his children into his room: Jack, Kelly, and Amy. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic reveals. Instead, these moments were filled with quiet conversations, deep eye contact, and the kind of emotional weight that words can scarcely convey. Sources say Ozzy embraced each child for what felt like forever, whispering personal messages of love, regret, and pride. It was a stark contrast to the larger-than-life persona the world knew. The wild man who bit the head off a bat on stage and trashed hotel rooms with abandon. This was Ozzy the father, the flawed human being who was trying, even in his final breath, to make peace. But perhaps the most heart-wrenching moment came when Sharon found him late one evening sitting in his favorite armchair, clutching an old photograph from the 1990s. It was a family portrait taken during what Ozzy had always referred to as the chaotic but beautiful years. Tears streamed silently down his cheeks as he turned to Sharon and said, "I'm sorry for what I couldn't fix, but thank you for staying." The funeral that silenced rock legends. Despite Ozzy's iconic status, his funeral was not the grand public spectacle many anticipated. There were no televised tributes, no high-profile rock performances, no firework-filled farewells. Held in a private English countryside chapel, the ceremony was brief, intimate, and deeply personal. Sharon made the decision, insisting, "He gave the world everything. Let us have this one moment just for us." Only immediate family and a few close friends were invited. No media, no fanfare, just a handful of wooden pews, flickering candles, and a haunting stillness. The ceremony lasted less than an hour, yet what transpired in those 45 minutes left a mark that would be remembered forever by those in attendance. Jack Osbourne spoke first. Fighting through tears, he didn't eulogize the rock star. He honored the man behind the myth. Jack shared how, just weeks before his passing, Ozzy had apologized for being an absentee father during the most formative years of his children's lives. "You did your best, Dad, and that was enough," Jack whispered at the end of his speech. Then came Kelly, often regarded as her father's mirror, wild, outspoken, yet deeply introspective. She painted a portrait of a misunderstood genius. She recalled a final voice note from Ozzy, recorded just 2 days before his death. "You've got your mom's fire and your dad's madness. You're unstoppable. I love you always." Finally, Sharon approached the casket. She didn't bring a speech. She brought her heart. With one trembling hand on the coffin, she whispered, "This wasn't supposed to be the end, but maybe this is the peace you never found in life. Sleep now, my darling." The room fell silent. Even the priest had to pause and collect himself. A solo violin began playing a stripped-down version of "Mama, I'm Coming Home," a song Sharon said always made Ozzy cry. And then, just like that, he was gone. The secret will that sparked a firestorm. Days after the funeral, the emotional weight of Ozzy's departure was compounded by the shocking revelations in his final will. Sharon, long expected to inherit the lion's share of Ozzy's estimated $220 million estate, was indeed named executor and retained their shared properties. But the rest of the document was filled with surprises. Over $80 million had been quietly transferred into a private trust earmarked for a woman named Margot, an unfamiliar name to both fans and some family members. According to anonymous sources, Margot was part of a secret relationship Ozzy maintained during the late 1980s. The twist? Margot had a child, now a grown man in his 30s, who Ozzy admitted in a handwritten note to be his biological son. The note, included in the will, read, "I was never the man I should have been for you, but no one will silence your truth now. You're my blood. This is your legacy too." Sharon, reportedly blindsided, was said to be in disbelief and considered legally contesting the document. But under UK law, Ozzy's will, notarized and finalized just 5 months before his passing, was legally binding and ironclad. The move triggered a cascade of family tension, with internal disputes, inheritance disputes, and questions of betrayal surfacing almost immediately. As if that weren't enough, another bombshell dropped. An offshore account in Ozzy's name containing $30 million had vanished. Investigators suggested it may have been used to fund secret medical treatments or quietly support his hidden family. The unfiltered interview. Sharon breaks her silence. If the will created a storm, Sharon's post-funeral interview was a lightning strike. Just 24 hours after laying her husband to rest, she appeared on camera. No makeup, no stylist, no glitz. Just a grieving widow, finally ready to speak her truth. She began by describing the agony of watching someone you love disappear not all at once, but in pieces, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Then came her chilling revelation. Ozzy wasn't afraid of death, she said. He was afraid of what he'd done while alive, of what might come back. She recounted how, 3 days before he died, Ozzy asked for a private moment. Hooked up to machines, barely able to speak, he whispered, "I did something years ago, something no one ever found out about. If it ever comes out now, just know I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin everything." Sharon refused to elaborate, but when asked if it involved drugs or infidelity, she shook her head. Her eyes filled with tears. "It was darker," she said. Speculation erupted. Some pointed to an unsolved disappearance from 1989 involving a man named Rosie, who was allegedly last seen with Ozzy. Officially ruled a runaway, the case had long gone cold. But Sharon's cryptic recounting, and her refusal to deny the connection, sent fans and conspiracy theorists into a frenzy. He was haunted, Sharon admitted, haunted by the man he was before sobriety. He used to say, "I hope God doesn't recognize me as that man." The letters and tapes, a legacy locked away. As the interview concluded, Sharon revealed that Ozzy had left behind a trove of personal letters and over 60 hours of video diaries. One letter bore the haunting title, "To the One I Hurt Most." Sharon has yet to open it. The tapes, according to insiders, were filmed sporadically over the last 2 decades. In them, Ozzy reportedly bares his soul, confessing, laughing, weeping, and reflecting on a life few truly understood. Networks like Netflix, HBO, and BBC are reportedly in a bidding war for the rights. But Sharon remains undecided. Some things, she said, were meant to be seen only by those who lived them. The man behind the madness. Ozzy Osbourne was never just a rock star. He was a walking contradiction. Chaos and compassion, addiction and recovery, wildness and vulnerability. He terrified parents, inspired generations, and somehow found a way to come home every time he lost himself. Sharon's final words beside his casket painted the truest picture, not of a legend, but of a deeply flawed, deeply human man searching for peace. He didn't find it in fame. He didn't find it in the spotlight. He found it in that quiet chapel, under the gray English sky, in the hands of the woman who never let him fall completely. Ozzy Osbourne may have left the stage, but his final performance was perhaps his most powerful. A story of love, regret, redemption, and the unshakable grip of truth. What are your memories? Whether you knew him as the Prince of Darkness, the wild force behind Black Sabbath, the unexpected star of reality TV, or simply the voice that gave you strength in your darkest moments, Ozzy Osbourne was more than a musician. He was a legend, a symbol of survival, chaos, and heart. His voice didn't just scream rebellion. It carried truth, pain, humor, and an uncanny humanity that made even the heaviest songs feel deeply personal. Ozzy's music was a lifeline for many. His growls and wails, his unpredictable presence on stage, and the raw emotion in his lyrics connected with people who felt lost, misunderstood, or angry. Songs like Crazy Train and Mama, I'm Coming Home weren't just anthems. They were therapy, defiance, and love letters all at once. For some, he was the first artist who made them feel seen. For others, he was the soundtrack to youth, rebellion, or healing. There are countless memories of Ozzy, biting the head off a bat, shuffling through the house on the Osbournes, standing tall at Download Festival with a grin and devil horns held high. But the one that sticks most? That voice, weathered, raw, and unmistakably Ozzy. Even in silence, it echoes. Ozzy wasn't just a rock star. He was a storm, unpredictable and unforgettable. And though the music world feels quieter now, his legacy roars on in every riff, every howl, every kid picking up a guitar because they once heard Paranoid and felt something spark inside. Rest in power, Ozzy. You turned chaos into beauty and noise into salvation. The world may never see another like you, but we'll always hear you.